never left Wisconsin, I'd probably just be a DJ and alcoholic with not much going on. I dove head in first, one-way ticket, one suitcase, one backpack, pretty much never really looked back. I honestly think that changed my entire life. I met people instantaneously, people who I still talk to this day. That was kind of like the kickoff of my new life. At that exact moment, I was like, all right, I'm out. And I literally left everything that I had owned in there. I think I took my computer and my clothing, and that was it. That before they adopted me, I wasn't even being fed food. I was just being fed sugar water. And I was able to kind of kickstart my philanthropic mission, which is to donate 1 million meals to orphans worldwide. I'm giving back to myself. Like when I was younger, to date, we've done over like 11,250 meals. And that was just in 2025 and 2026. My goal is to do at least 25,000.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. On this week's episode of Bending the Mind, we have a very special guest. We have Alex Evans. Alex, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tristan. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, super excited to have you. We're just going to jump straight into things as we usually do. And I want the audience to really get a grip as to who you are and maybe who you were in the past as well. And so the question I want to ask you right away is, who would you be today in 2026 had you never left Wisconsin all those years ago?
It's such a loaded question, to be honest, because was my home, right? It was where I was raised. It's where I went to school. It's where I went to university. But the truth of it is, if I never left Wisconsin, I would be the same guy I was like 6, 7 years ago. And most likely, if I continued being in that path, I'd probably just be a DJ and alcoholic with not much going on, if I'm being totally honest.
Is that who you were back then?
I think to an extent, yeah. I mean, back in the day, I was managing a nightclub. I was bartending on the side. And even though I wanted to do more and have more flexibility and like work remote and all that kind of stuff, I wasn't taking it as seriously as I was taking the nightlife industry. So
Mhm.
yeah, ultimately, I mean, sure, maybe it wasn't like a massive problem or anything, but it's like, is that really aligned with the person that I want to become down the line? No, obviously.
So much stuff that I want to unpack in there. So much stuff right away. Before we get into a lot of stuff about, maybe what happened in the past and who you might have been there, what does that mean for you to be the man that you want to become? Like, can you define who that man would be for me or
Yeah, I
for us?
mean, yeah, that's a really great question. I think for anybody who's watching right now, I think it's a really important question that they also ask themselves is, who do you envision yourself being? What is your ideal day? What does your ideal lifestyle look like? I think down the line, sometimes I will envision 12 months down the line, maybe 18 months or 2 years, somewhere around there, as well as like the 5, 10 years. Like I want to be crystal clear. I don't actually have like a 5 year plan. I don't have a 10 year plan. But when I close my eyes, especially like before bed, I can envision like what my dream life truly looks like. And I mean, to go into a little bit of it, it's surrounding myself with people who are inspiring me, both my close friends, as well as my partner, as well as my family, as well as my children, building a family together. It's like, maybe it's a little bit cookie cutter, but that is really like what I see. And it can even go a little bit deeper as well, too. Like I envision owning a lake home. I envision probably owning a home in a city as well, too. Um, Having the car that I want, having a boat, right? Like, there are all these accessories to that life, but I think at its core, it's really centered around being around people that are inspiring me and that I love on a day to day basis.
I think it's interesting that you mentioned cookie cutter because I think cookie cutter is like an overarching definition of what, that the movies and stuff has defined that to be. But every version of cookie cutter is different from each and every person, right? Like my
Totally.
version of cookie cutter might be white picket fence. Yours is lake home, surrounded by people who you enjoy. And for those watching at home, like I think maybe for you, figuring out what your version of cookie cutter looks like, similar to what you just said, is something that you should be challenging yourself to do. And I guess, do you feel like getting clarity on what that is important to actually take steps forward in life?
Yeah, 100%. I think like without fully jumping into like manifestation, it's just,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think the best way, the best analogy that there possibly could be right now is like, if you're going to use Uber and you want to get somewhere, like obviously you need to know the location, you need to look up the address, or you need to know the name of the destination. If you put in nothing inside of Uber, where are they going to drop you off? They might not even pick you up.
Yeah.
You don't know where you're going. You have to be pretty crystal clear on exactly where you're going, what that destination is actually going to look like for it to actually come to reality, in my opinion.
You know what I'd be really curious to know is because I think through a couple of conversations that we've had now and that the audience will get to know you more over the course of this show, is you're pretty crystal clear on who you are, who you want to be, where you want to go. And obviously there's a version of you in the past that didn't have that and you're very different now. Do you actually miss anything from the man you used to be?
That's a really great question. I would say, do I miss anything from the man I used to be? I think, if anything, no. There's not parts that I miss from 5 to 10 years ago, but there
Mhm.
are elements that I miss from my childhood. And I think that's quite common. And I think as I become wiser and as I get older, I actually try to reflect back to when I was a child and really understand exactly what lit me up and what made me excited then, and what I
Mhm.
also found comfort in, and how can I incorporate some of those things back into my adult life. So the answer to your question is no, I don't miss who I was when I was living in Wisconsin post university, graduate. I don't. That's pretty much the reason why I left.
I'm excited to explore the principle that you just mentioned of the inner child later in the episode, but can you tell us a little bit about the environment being in Wisconsin? Like, I guess a little bit about your backstory being there, how you kind of made your way to where you are now. Living in Miami, obviously a drastic difference. The kind of trajectory you took to overcome that environment and be placed into this new one.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can share a little bit of what my week to week kind of looked like. Even
Yeah,
going through university and then graduating for just a bit, so the audience can kind of understand exactly what's going on here. And in fact, if you knew me in Wisconsin and you're watching this episode, like, you're gonna understand it's 100% truths.
yeah,
But basically, what would it look like is, like, when I was in university, I would go to a few classes, whatever. I was actually quite a good student, in my opinion, like great grades, would actually go to class, not skip class.
yeah.
I felt like it was kind of my obligation, seeing as I'm paying for it. I really should get the most out of it, which is, yeah, just how I felt about university, which was great. But then as soon as class was done, I was probably maybe going out with friends or whatever, maybe just wasting time, maybe not actually putting that much time into any of my homework or projects or anything like that, spending
Yeah.
time, working out, whatever, and then also going out with friends. I feel like that was like a huge part of my life. I think, as it is for many college students, but that kind of continued as I started working at a nightclub. That really overtook like all of my weekends. So like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, really became dedicated to working at this nightclub, which was honestly a really insanely great opportunity that I kept building for myself. I came into that club wanting a job there. I started as a photographer, worked my way up to social media, then to like marketing assistant, then marketing director, and it just kind of kept blossoming. And
Hmm.
that was 100% like on my own terms, but I didn't like the lifestyle. And I knew that actually very early on to working at a nightclub. I was like, I could see the same people coming in every single weekend, spending ungodly amounts of money, and also just getting trashed. And I didn't even know it then, but I didn't know how terrible hangovers are. Now I'm 29. I actually know how terrible they are. But
Yeah.
looking back at that, when I was like 21, 22, working at this nightclub, and I was seeing literally adults come in that are 35, 40 years old, coming in every single weekend, spending probably a decent amount of their paycheck, I just knew pretty early on that that's not what I wanted my life to be like. And when alcohol was added to the equation, it was like bad decisions are being made, both like with like breaking my own like laws to myself, also doing things that are damaging to other relationships, making poor choices for my health. It's just like, when I started to kind of see and all of these negative things started accumulating, I was like, well, to me, really, the only answer out was to switch the environment 100%. So leaving really did feel like the best option. And honestly, I'm so grateful that I did. It probably was the best decision that I made.
Did you immediately leave Wisconsin on the back of the nightclub, or were there a little, some things in between that occurred, and then you left Wisconsin? And when you did leave Wisconsin, where did you go?
It's a great question. I'm excited to share. This is actually, I feel like, where my come up story truly begins, to be honest, which
Yeah.
is I'm so grateful to have My original business mentor, Donato Salvo, I actually still work with him to this day, but he was really the guy who was leading the ship at the nightclub. And he gave me a nudge practically, I think, right around when COVID had started. He gave me the nudge being like, hey, you can stay here. You can stay in Milwaukee. You can wait out the storm with us or you can just go. Like you can go, dude. Like it's all good. And I took that as an opportunity. I actually didn't leave at first. I probably stuck around for like 2 more months. And I was living in kind of a crappy little apartment. And I saw a bed bug crawl out of the wall and like climb up on my bed. This is the first time I've ever seen this, right? And I
Fuck.
remember I was just chilling there, like working on my desk, and I see this, and I see this little bug, and I was like, "Oh my god, dude!" And to clear the record, it wasn't me; it was the neighbor. Like the exterminators came and they found where it
Yeah,
was
you
coming from.
you gotta
But
clear the
yeah,
record for that
I
one.
have to clear the record because I feel like it's gross. But
Yeah.
the exterminator came, they found out where it's coming from. And at that exact moment, I was like, all right, I'm out. And I
Mhm.
literally left everything that I had owned in there. I think I took my computer and my clothing, and that was it. I left every single thing else. I told the landlord, cut me a check for a couple $1,000s, and I won't tell anybody else who lives in that building. So my apologies if you live there and you have bed bugs. But I got my money. I left and I went to go stay at a friend's house. Tommy Moore, shout out Tommy, for like, I think probably a month. And then I went home to my parents' house for like, I think it was like literally 7 days. And I remember like laying in bed and being like, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm post
Yeah,
grad. Like, I really don't want to be living at my family's house. So
yeah,
thankfully, it wasn't like too long. But I did a little bit of research, found out that digital nomading is like an actual real thing, and then I just
yeah.
went straight for it. So I dove head in first, and I went straight to Mexico. One way ticket, one suitcase, one backpack. Pretty much never really looked back. That's how I got out of there.
Which city did you land in?
I went straight to Cozumel, Mexico, because
Okay.
funny enough, I went on Reddit and I was like, what's the safest like area of Mexico? Because I had no
Yeah,
idea what I was doing. I was like 22. So
yeah.
that's where I went. I spent 11 days there. And if you've been to Cozumel, you cannot spend 11 days there. It is so
Fuck
boring.
no.
So
It's the
yeah,
worst.
yeah.
It's one of the worst cities to go. I mean, it's beautiful for like that's why all the cruise ships go there. We'll leave it at that. Right.
Yeah, it's a beautiful destination. Once the cruise ships leave, there's nobody. It's literally a ghost town. So I stayed there
Yeah.
for 11 days by myself. I was like living in like a hostel kind of
Mhm.
situation, like private room, nice swimming pool in the back, and I was bored out of my mind. So I built up the courage to go over to Playa del Carmen, take the ferry over there, and I honestly think that changed my entire life. I met people instantaneously, people who I still talk to this day as well too, everybody who was kind of like starting their solo travel journeys.
Yeah.
And once I started exploring, like I honestly didn't stop. That was kind of like the kickoff of my new life.
What are the odds we might have stayed in the same hostel in Cozumel just at different times? Because I've been to a hostel in Cozumel with a pool in the back in a private room a couple of years ago.
It's got to be
So,
the same.
was it like an old lady who was running the thing or no?
I feel like there wasn't even anybody really running it, to be
Oh,
honest.
really?
Like, but there was like the shared kitchen on the second floor.
No, it wasn't the same then, it wasn't the same. Damn, that's
Uh,
too bad. That would've been one hell of a story.
yeah, that would have been hilarious. I remember
Um,
the
yeah,
hostel owner though coming out to the swimming pool one day and asking if I was okay
okay.
because I was just laying on a pool floaty, I think listening to some music. But this has been like the 11th day in a row. I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I wasn't really leaving that much. Like, and he was just like, are you okay?" And he probably just saw this young guy like not doing anything, not really knowing what to do.
You know what's a
But
really interesting direction I would love to explore with you is, obviously this whole podcast, this whole show is about what our mind can unlock for us, what it does to us, what it can do for us, and everything like that. And the fact that you went to Cozumel after looking up what is the safest city in Mexico, what does that tell you about the narrative that some of these countries receive and the narrative that we're fed about them? Right? Because we've both spent
yeah,
time in Central America, other countries where technically speaking, according to our countries, it's like a don't go or be very, very hyper aware. Well, I'll be the first guy to tell you in Mexico, I was just doing my thing. Like I'm not worried about much. So what is that kind of, or what's your interpretation of the way that we're fed those narratives?
I think that's I think that there's a lot of things to unpack there. I think like, are you going to believe everything you hear just because you were told it, or are you going to go explore for yourself? And maybe it's just for me, but like the internal feeling I had was like, I don't really care. I'd rather go experience it for myself and see if what they're saying is actually true. But on the back end of that, it was like I actually started to travel pretty much peak COVID season.
Mm.
And that was overwhelmingly more insane than the fact that I was going to Mexico. So like the fact that I would leave my friends, leave my family, leave like the lockdown and isolation to go start traveling, people had a lot of judgment against that. And I felt as if that was a little bit more overshadowing than actually where I was going. Now,
Mhm.
I did go to Cozumel because I did know that it was safe, but I also knew that eventually I would go other places. And it didn't take very long for me to start expanding to different places in like South America as well too. I actually very quickly went to Colombia with two strangers I met in Playa del Carmen pretty early
Oh,
into
yeah.
my solo travel. So as soon as you kind of take that leap, I feel like you do definitely start to kind of open up there.
Yeah, I mean, I've done the whole solo travel thing too, and I think I discovered so many things about myself. You know, you'll meet people in a hostel that you gain a level of trust that you don't even have with people that you've known for like 15 years. You know, like
It's
I was
insane.
in
Yeah.
it's crazy. Like I met a guy, first guy I saw at a hostel bar in Mexico, and we're having drinks together and we spend an entire week together, and all of a sudden he tells me like he's continuing down, you know, toward Nicaragua, toward Guatemala, and we had developed such a bond that he told me he was going to Costa Rica and I just so happened to be going to Panama in and around the same time, and so we agreed to spend 2 weeks together in Costa Rica after I already flew back and I would go early. Guy I knew for literally 7 days,
Yeah.
and we made a pact that if either of us get married, we must invite the other to their wedding. He lives in
Oh, that's
fucking
amazing.
Switzerland, so, it's incredible the people that you meet on these trips and in these places, man, it's crazy.
Yeah, and when you meet those types of people, they'll tell you about their own narratives that they've been fed as well too. They'll
Mhm.
tell you more about America than well, I guess you're in Canada, but for me,
Yeah,
being an American traveler, like people would tell me about what they knew about America, and that's actually how I learned that there are places inside of America that are also basically like on lockdown to other countries. They will literally say, like let's say you're flying from Switzerland, they'll say places in America to not visit, like you are not safe there. Baltimore, Maryland, for example. But it's like I never knew that growing up. I didn't know specifically that there are areas of America that other places were told not to visit as well too. So I think I mean
mhm.
this is kind of happening everywhere. If you do your due diligence, and especially as you start to travel a little bit more, and you have connections in different places or people who might have done those paths before you, like, they'll tell you, like, everything you pretty much need to know to stay safe.
That's an interesting thing to speak of, right? Like, where do you see that, or how do you see that same strategy of just simply questioning what you're being told? How do you see that being helpful in other areas of life, or how have you seen that be helpful in other areas of your life?
I think it's been ingrained in me since I was very young. As long as I can remember, always just questioning authority. Obviously, that's gotten me into some trouble as well too.
Yeah,
But I don't know, man. I think as being kind of like a sovereign man, I think you don't need to play by the same rules that everybody else is willing to play by. Like, if you genuinely know deep down in your mind and in your heart that you're doing the right thing, then most likely you are, unless you're
but
crazy.
unless you're yeah, unless you're insane. Many of us though are raised in, I mean, society as a whole is curated to essentially have you conform, right? I think that's like a not like a polarizing opinion anymore. I think
Yeah.
that's a pretty well documented one. So, what would you say to somebody like I guess this would technically be a version of myself a few years ago, someone who doesn't feel sovereign or isn't sovereign, right? They do what they're told, they conform to what the norm is and they don't question the narratives they're being provided. How do you become what you would define as a sovereign man?
I think you would need to want to be free first. I think if you don't have the calling to be free or to question authority, then that might just not be your life, to be honest. I don't think everybody needs to go against the grain and question everything. I think we already see that a lot in like keyboard warriors leaving crazy comments online, right? Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. I think you need to ask for yourself. Like, do you see a better version or a different version for your life? I actually don't always think it's really better. Would life be better if you're questioning absolutely everything? If you can handle it, maybe.
If you can handle it, yeah. There's I mean, I think that gets you into the conversation about levels of consciousness, right? Like, how much do you want to question? Like, I went through this huge period of time relative to, like, the algorithm, right? Like, what was I being fed? You know, it was stuff about, like, this country was at war, and there were narratives about this side, and I started questioning, okay, why is everybody that I talk to getting kind of the same curated feed? It can't possibly be because our watch time is all the same for certain videos. I refuse to
Yeah.
believe that, right? But then there's levels of that where I'm not gonna go and become like a monk or some storm the Capitol kind of person, right? I'm still gonna fall under, I guess, societal convention.
Yeah.
And I think I found my healthy medium in that kind of level of awareness and consciousness, right? But
What steps did you take to find that though? Like, did you go too far at one point and you said, "Hey, I'm going too far"?
I don't think so. I think it was a matter of the trajectory for me was very what I now know isn't serving me anymore, right? And similar to probably the conversation that we had and the things that I do for my clients now in my business is like it's a factor of holding up a mirror to what it is you believe to be true, right? And unfortunately what I believe to be true held me back in a lot of ways, right? And so maybe this is just kind of placing a boogeyman on it, but I wasn't born with a lot of the things that I believe to be true. Like that's just not like a human condition, right? They were programmed, and thus, if it didn't serve me, then I didn't desire to believe it, right? And so that's when I began to question it. Okay, why would that be the case? Why is this? Why is that? And then, typically speaking, you come back to the point of, well, who's easier to control? Somebody that questions the authority, or somebody that just kind of falls in
Just
line,
goes
right?
with
Which
it.
is probably why you experience some trouble by being someone that questioned a lot of authority.
Yeah, still do, by the way.
Can you give us an example?
Um, oh my gosh. I think I can't give you a specific example, maybe. One doesn't immediately come to my head, but I think
Mhm.
overall being told I guess I can remember, especially in high school, being told that certain things work certain ways by teachers teaching the
Yeah.
lesson and me just being flat out like, "No, that's not true." And them also being like, "No, this is the lesson." And I'm like, "No, that's I'm not gonna believe that." And maybe I would even go home and do some of my own research on the topic itself, which I actually think is probably a better thing, right? Like,
Mhm.
kind of being a self-learner. And there was a lot of that. There was always like a little bit of pushback is like, what you're saying is so incomprehensible that I just don't, I'm not just going to blindly believe this. I also don't know really who you are, right? Like you're
Yeah.
just kind of giving me this lesson. So I think there was like quite a bit of that.
Where do you think that comes from? Because if I'm looking back on my past, like I had no ounce of that when I was younger. It was just this is the way, you know, this is how things are done. This is the lesson we learn. So like if you had to think back to maybe like the way you were raised or something, like where do you think that came from?
From a young age, I always wanted to be pretty hyper independent. I remember, and not even in a way that I didn't like my family. I actually have a great relationship with my family and I love them. But even
Mhm.
growing up, I just always knew I wanted to be able to be self sufficient, be able to take care of myself in pretty much every facet. And I think because of that, it always led me to looking at things around me, situations, people, interactions in a way that could be beneficial for me down the line or like everything in life kind of was like a learning lesson in like what can I extract from this to be able to be self-sufficient. So just kind of learning basically how to keep an eye out for myself. How can I have my own best interest in you? And I even being really young, I knew that I was doing that in the back of my mind. It wasn't even really in the back of my mind. It was actually more so at the forefront.
Yeah.
It's kind of
I
like
don't
playing
remember go,
life
go
as a game.
life like a video game. One of my
Kind of.
favorite sayings. We had Ali the Alchemist on 2 weeks ago, and that's one of his doctrine. Um I forget what age you mentioned it to me when we spoke last time, and I hope that I'm not overstepping by bringing this up, but, you were adopted when you were younger. I think you're very comfortable about speaking
Yeah.
about that. What age was that at again?
I was just under 1 years old, so I was still a baby. Yeah.
I was curious because I was gonna ask, like, do you think this level of self-sufficiency and independence could have been a manifestation about of the fact that, you weren't.
100%.
You do you think so?
Where else would it come from? I don't know, like,
I would agree, but, from the age of 0 to 12 months, that's definitely yes, it's a very formative time period, but it's also you're very, very unconscious. So, how do you think it manifested itself even at that young of an age?
I think it could have happened even before then if you really, like, look into it or, like, kinda dig deeper. I
Yep.
think if you're inside of your mother growing and the mom knows that maybe the father knows that the father doesn't want you, the mother knows she can't have you, like, now you are developing as a human, as somebody who's pretty much unwanted, and then when you come into the reality, the physical world, that's just a natural extension of it, just giving the kid away. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I know that it sounds like it's a short amount of time, but I
Mhm.
think it was a short enough amount of time that it didn't affect me as much as it does affect other people who were adopted when they were like 3, 4, or 5.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't really have the science to back that up. It's obviously been something that I've thought about in my mind, especially even growing up when it's like when I'm like 8 or 9 years old, being like, why do I want to be so self efficient? Well, it's so I can take care of myself because at one point in time there was nobody, right? And I don't
Mhm.
think that that's a bad trait at all. And I didn't think of it as a bad thing then. I still don't know. I still don't either. And if anything, I think it's a more attractive quality to have is that you can survive and you can actually thrive without needing other people. Now, granted, I want to have my own family. I want to be around amazing people, but I think it's very important for everybody to kind of have their own back in a sense.
What I guess how do you think being adopted has played a role in your life other than, of course, the self-sufficiency, right? Have you seen it manifest itself in other areas? I'm someone who I think you might be one of the few people I've met who is. That's not by design. Let's let's put that out there. Like I'm not surrounding myself with people that are adopted for any reason, but I don't think I've had many conversations with people who have experienced that kind of upbringing. How have you seen that manifest itself in other areas?
um, from in different ways, basically in different chapters of my life.
Yeah.
Like when I was a young boy and I was going to school, my parents went out of their way to make sure that the anniversary of my adoption, which they called my gotcha day, which is amazing, they made sure that they would bring in ice cream for everybody in my class. And it really just obviously turned into a bit of a celebration. It's almost like having a second birthday. So,
And normalize.
yeah, totally. It actually it's really celebrated it realistically, and it
Yeah.
made it so fun. I would always get, like, 1 or 2 presents as well, so it was like think of it like a mini birthday. So, honestly, growing up, it was, like, amazing. I never really put too much thought into it because for as long as I can remember, I've always known, so my parents must have told me like, when I was a baby, pretty much, just knowing that, like, just how all those dynamics kind of work. But then as being an adult, I think especially when I moved to Miami and I started surrounding myself around people who have strong voices and who have really been able to dial theirs in, I think that allowed me to go deeper into my own story and realize like the adoption portion of my life is my story. That is my roots. That is my origin. Like I came from there. And this is an incredibly powerful thing. And now I can't imagine, like, I honestly can't imagine who would I be without being adopted? Like, would I just be some kid who's like stuck in Russia with no money and nothing and no family and like whatever and just like
Mhm.
life sucks? I don't know. Like, I really don't know. I can't imagine it another way. And now I also feel so blessed to have been chosen and literally purchased by another family. Like they wanted me so badly that they inconvenienced their wallets and their entire lives to bring me across the world to raise me. I mean, come on, that's an incredible story.
Incredible. Did you ever spend a part of your life not seeing it that way? Did you ever spend a part of your life resenting maybe resentment is the wrong word, but not celebrating it in the way that you just described.
By God's grace, thankfully, no, I never dabbled in that. I think I had seen that from other people,
Yeah.
and I think I didn't want to do that. I don't think I'm ever going to want to play in the game where I'm criticizing like where I came from ever. Like no matter what, because like the past is the past. Like I really can't control it now. So I really try not to do that. But there was a time when I had a lot of questions or when I overanalyzed, like, why am I different than my, my adopted family, like my family here in America? I think there
Mhm.
was times where I would be critical, but no, never too dark, thankfully.
Ho how would you advise someone who's maybe going through, and they don't even need to be adopted, right? It doesn't need to be the situation, but someone who has all but, like, blocked out their past, right? It could be trauma block, could be for the sake of, like, "Oh, this period of my life is gone," rather than embracing that that is who they were and
Yeah.
who they are now is who they are now. Like, that's not an easy stage or step for most people to take. How would you help someone or advise someone to go through that?
I think this could be really powerful for them just to realize that what they have experienced in their life is one of the biggest skill sets that they bring to humanity as a whole. So recently, I had one of my closest friends basically tell me some information about their past that I had no idea about ever. And was like so shocked to even hear it because I know them so well. And their whole thing was like, well, like let the past die in the past, like just let it be. But the
Yeah.
first thing that came to my mind was like, well, that might actually be your biggest strength that you've ever had. Like your experience through what you have experienced is the thing that separates you from every other human. It makes you qualified to talk on that topic, but also on your routes kind of like out of it as well too. So
Mhm.
I don't know. Like I think if you're experiencing something or if you have something traumatic in the past, like I don't want to say like lean into it necessarily. You don't have to make it your life mission, but you don't really know, I think, how many other people might be experiencing that as well too, and how qualified you are now to be speaking about it, raising awareness, or just mentoring even just like one other person. I think I don't know if we'll cover the philanthropy side on here, but like
I would
when
love
I'm
to.
doing when I'm doing philanthropy or like when I'm taking part in donating, it's like I'm serving myself realistically. And
Yeah.
I think if you can see it through that lens, like you can have a conversation with somebody about the thing that you might have struggled with, but you kind of like made it through, then you are healing yourself. You're healing the younger version of yourself.
I think it also, I've seen it happen with some of my clients, and obviously I speak to a lot of founders, right? We're both uniquely in this online money space where most of the people we surround ourselves with are either business owners or working very closely at the top end of a business. And I think the rejection of what has happened in your past actually it's a huge negative, because oftentimes you'll have things manifest in your present that are a factor or have been influenced by your past, and because you've left it in the past you can never overcome it,
Yeah.
right? I had a client, for example, who was dealing with a lot of self-worth, self-love problems, right? A lot of external factors tied to the way that they perceive themselves internally, and they actually believed that they had overcome that specifically, right? Because they had overcome it in their sales capacity. But
Yeah.
because they had
Because
this
they don't
belief,
think about it.
exactly, because they had this belief that they'd overcome it in one area, it was manifesting itself in about 9 other areas in their life, and they couldn't do anything about it because they didn't believe that they had the problem anymore. And the same applies to, if you leave the past in the past, you're not gonna believe that it's impacting you anymore, but it is, and you just tell yourself a story about what is happening for you, and it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. But yeah, I'm a firm believer that if you don't confront your past, it will manifest itself in your present and the rest of your future.
Yeah, I could see that. I don't it's hard to like pinpoint if I've been experiencing that in some capacity, but I think if you're religious, I think there's kind of like I don't know if it's like a saying or not, but it's like God will continue speaking to you. And if you're not listening, he'll get louder and louder and louder. And there has definitely been points in my life where I'm like, okay, God is literally screaming at me because I refuse to listen. when he was gentler or when, you know, this particular situation arose. And I think that's kind of like another way of kind of seeing that as well too. If you're not gonna take the trash out early on, it's gonna start piling up and start getting a lot worse.
Are you religious?
Yeah, yeah, I'm
Have you
Christian.
heard I'm not personally. I think over time I've been agnostic for a long time, and now I'm more of like a student of the universe, let's say. I really would love to understand the multitude of religions that exist and connect the dots between them.
Yeah,
But I'm always hearing the parable of the three boats or the man in the three boats. Have you ever heard of that?
I'm not sure. Maybe once you share.
So basically, there's this man who is stranded at sea on an island, right, with nothing but ocean around him, and he's praying to God for a way out, and he's praying to God to save him. And one man comes by in a boat and says, "Hey, like hop on my boat, I'll take you to shore." And he's like, "No, God will save me." Right? And then a second man comes by and asks him the same thing and tells him the same thing, and he says, "No, like don't worry about it, God will save me." And then a third man comes by in a third boat, says the same thing, and once again he says, "No, don't worry about it, God will save me." And then he ends up passing away, I think, and he's, met with God at the gates of heaven, and he says, "Why didn't you save me?" And he's like, "What the fuck are you talking about? I
I
sent
sent
3
three
guys to
boats.
save you, and you said no to all of them."
Yeah.
So, yeah, sometimes, at least in the religion, of Christianity and Catholicism and whatever, God will send a message. It's just a factor of if you're listening or not.
Yeah, I'm in a Bible group actually, and recently I've been having a lot of crazy dreams, like
Mhm.
just dreams about a lot of people specifically in my past, ranging anywhere between the time when I was like 10 or 11 years old all the way up to now 29. It's been insane. And I just shared that with one of the guys in there, Jay, and he's like, you got to look into this more because God talks to you in your dreams, which I don't know if I've really thought about that so much, like about my dreams in particular. I don't know what's there. I don't know what it
Do
means
you
just yet.
Can you remember one of the dreams vividly that you'd like to share? If you can.
Yeah, there's been a lot of them. I would say like one in particular that really stood out was that I had friends from middle school, high school, and college all in the same dream. It felt like an all-star mix-up. Like we were on the court, and I remember being in the dream, and it's not like we weren't really doing anything. I think we were on a dock, and I think there was like kayaking around, and like maybe they're selling like coffee or smoothies or something. I remember going up to like the bar to get like a smoothie, and I
Mhm,
just remember looking back and seeing different friends from different times all talking with each other. And I thought that that was just like the most bizarre thing. I was like, these are all people that maybe the friendships have kind of like ran their course on. And like
mhm.
nobody with bad blood, nobody I'm still actively talking to as well. It's just kind of like that middle area. And honestly, now saying it out loud, something definitely comes to my mind, which is like, I like to be a connector of people. I always am thinking, I think in the back of my mind, like, even like speaking with you, Tristan, be like, is there another person that I could introduce you with? Because you never know where that's going to go. And
Mhm.
now, yeah, like talking this out loud right now, I'm like wondering, maybe in my dream, it was trying to say, like, think about all the connections that have spawned from just you knowing these people or having like connections with them as well too, which could be a really cool thought. But yeah, it seems like this keeps happening for like the last 3 weeks. It's been an overwhelming amount, honestly.
That's an interesting dream. Do you think that that dream would be trying to tell you something in that case, or do you think it would be trying to have you sit in a place of gratitude for, what you have been able to accomplish and connect people?
It's a good question. Have thought about that portion of it. I'm like, is this trying to teach me something or is this something about myself? I'm leaning towards more something about myself. I think like
Okay.
the people that are coming up in my dreams are all from like the past, but that the past is kind of also like my origin story. And I can feel a sense of myself. Now I've been living in like a major city for 3 years now. I can feel a sense of like me wanting to not return home, but like return to like a tighter community instead of like the chaos of the city where everybody's moving in and out like every other week. So
What
I'm
do you
thinking maybe that has something to do with it.
what do you miss from that tighter community? Like, what do you feel like you're lacking in your current environment that a tighter community would give you?
I think just like deeper connections and a more accessible, deeper connections. I think living in a big city, sometimes it can be a little bit tricky with like people placed across the city, a lot of traffic, a lot of movement. a lot of things going on, a lot of events, all this kind of stuff. Like, I think I'm getting to the stage where I'm okay with a simpler life, you know?
Mhm.
Like, yeah, so I'm honestly excited. I feel like it's a new chapter that's gonna be coming up.
Yeah, I can feel the energy inside you. It's itching. You
Yeah,
wanna
but yeah.
yeah. What's, this is a really interesting question because I think it's again, it's different for everyone. It's kinda like that cookie cutter example we did, 20 minutes ago. Like, what does deep connection mean to you? What do you seek in another person when you feel as though you want to have a deep connection with them? Is it emotional? Is it spiritual? Is it environmental? Like, what do you feel like it is for you?
I think at my core, I'm like a naturally ambitious person and I'm always looking for that in other people. I just love when other people have something that they feel so passionate about and that they're putting in effort to actually make something of it. And that doesn't need to be this insane business that somebody's growing. And it doesn't need to be that they're inventing like a new product or whatever. But it's just like you kind of meet people and you know that they have their head screwed on straight and that they're doing something with their life. And I think that's kind of like what I'm looking for. Pretty much in all connections, realistically. I don't ever want to be friends with somebody who's just has absolutely nothing going for them. It's yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
I think for the this is a rude definition of who I'm trying to speak to, but like for the layman, for the generalized person who isn't where they want to be, doesn't feel like they're the person that they want to be. I think there's a step in between what you've just described and where they are now, right? Because once you become very intentional about the people that you surround yourself with, it's only natural that you'll ascend to their level of, we can go vibration, frequency, all this stuff. But I think there's seldom people that audit, like, how is my energy affected based on who I spend my time with and who I interact with, you know? I know how that presents itself for me. Like, if I was someone who, man, I just felt like down, all the time, and like my friends weren't uplifting, like, what strategy might you use to seek out people who are higher energy, higher vibration, are going to lift you up instead of drag you down?
I feel like that's such an easy question to answer because I've done it myself.
Yeah.
Before I moved to Miami, I moved to Fort Lauderdale. I was hanging out with the wrong crowd and I stayed there for about 6 months. And without speaking to anybody, literally anybody, I made the decision by myself that I was going to move to Miami for a couple different reasons. But one of them was to like do what I want to do and be around the people that I wanted to be. So like your question is how would you find those people who are more uplifting and whatnot? But you have to put yourself in that environment. So for
Yeah.
me in that Fort Lauderdale situation, I decided on like a Wednesday I was gonna move and I moved by like the next Friday, right? So I like started to look for somebody to take over my lease and then I found a new one down here in Miami. And then I didn't have any friends here. Literally knew like one person that I met from like a club, like very loose relationship.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of time on my hands when I got here, and I was like, well, what do I want to do? Who do I want to be? I joined a boxing gym. I literally never boxed before that. I ended up meeting like a bunch of new friends from there. I started working from like some hotel lobbies, made some friends there, went to co-working things, and I just started doing the things that I wanted to do without asking for permission from anybody else. And naturally, I made friends doing that. And then same when I moved to Miami Beach, where I am right now. Like I just started going to the run club. And now that I look back, I'm like, wow, all those people I used to go to the run club and see every single week, like those are some of my best friends. And that just happens naturally by repetition of showing up in a place of or in the environment that you want to be in anyways. So you don't really it's almost like nature returning back to nature. Like you need
Mhm.
to just do what you want to do. And if you don't know what to do, then the best thing to do is to look back at when you were younger before all the influences kind of took over and say, what were the things I did like to do? Did I like to play soccer? Did I like to play even video games? You can still connect with people over them. Did you
Yeah.
like to go swimming or like hang out at the beach? Like, okay, well, can I implement one or two of those things per week enough times that I can start to build up a little bit of reputation so that way I naturally start to make friends doing those things that I already like to do, and it works pretty effectively.
I feel like if you're somebody that's on a higher level of like consciousness, that's like an easy thing to do, right? Because you know that you're aware that your environment is going to dictate your frequency, right? And thus, as you put out this less interrupted frequency, you'll attract the same back to you as you've literally just described. But in that position where you're in Fort Lauderdale and you're surrounded by the wrong people and you decide on a random Wednesday that I'm going to move to Miami and let everything go, like I don't tell anybody. Like how do you work up the gusto to make a decision like that? Because most people would be paralyzed by the thought of what people would think, what could go wrong, what are the all of the negatives that could come of this life altering decision, at least in their eyes. So how do
Yeah.
you overcome that paralysis?
Yeah, I know already people are gonna watch this and they're gonna say like, "Oh, dude, some of us can't just drop
Yeah.
everything we're doing and just move to Miami." Well, I mean, to that, I would say like really analyze like where are you prioritizing things in your life? Like totally understand if you have like a husband, wife, kids, a job that you aren't flexible with, but like baby steps, right? Like maybe if you do want to move, maybe you start looking for a job that's in the new city. Or maybe if you do want to move, you start looking for a job that's fully remote. Or you
Totally.
start having that conversation with your partner about like, hey, I think we should explore other places. Or maybe instead of using your vacation fund to go to an all-inclusive resort, you go to a city that might like be a better fit for you and you start doing some research. I think if you're paralyzed in that moment, I think the thing that you need to do is to not overthink it and then follow what your heart is saying. And if it's saying that you need to go away for the weekend to go explore some new opportunity, or if you need to call back somebody who one time offered you a job 6 years ago, but you guys don't really talk that much, but you feel called to do that, then I think that you need to follow that intuition. And I can even give you an example. I recently in my business,
Mhm.
I had worked with a headhunting agency. They placed somebody for me. They didn't end up working out like maybe 2.5, 3 months in. And I felt a way about that. I was like, I don't want to go through all this pain again. I spent so much time training this new person. There was an investment there, both in time and money, whatever. I will just try and find my new person by myself. And funny enough, I was speaking with Claude and he gave me the advice. It was like, who do you know who could help you get this job done faster? Because me trying to do it all on my own, it started bleeding and taking forever. And it obviously the headhunting team came to my mind and I called them up and I said, hey, look, you guys placed this person, didn't end up working. I didn't want to inconvenience you. I didn't want to inconvenience myself, but like, is there a world in which you could help me place this person? And by my surprise, they responded. They were like, "We would love to help you. Like, we felt so bad it didn't work out, like all this stuff." And that was just kind of like my gut plus Claude just kind of like riffing back and forth. And
Yeah.
I found the person and everything is good.
Funny, eh? How that works out.
It's crazy.
I think for the like you literally said it verbatim, like in the best way possible. Like I can't just give up everything and leave. Like I understand that, right? And I understand that too, in the sense of you feel as though there are so many things tying you to where you currently are geographically that the thought of leaving would make no sense, right? It would be absolutely ridiculous. But I think the whole reason like I got into the online space, maybe similar to you as well, is like I didn't want to live a life where I needed to escape from it. I
Hmm.
wanted to live a life where I just this is it. Like I'm just vibing all the time, right? I
Yeah.
live my dream life every day. I do the things that lift me up energetically, and I don't need to go to Cozumel on a cruise once or twice a year to escape my reality the other 50 weeks of the year. Like it was just not a life that I desired. And so
Yeah.
I think you also gave another great example of if you are saving up for this big trip, save up a little bit more and see if you can change your dynamic completely to
Yeah.
build a life you don't need to escape from, you know?
Yeah. Same
Yeah,
goes with toxic relationships as well, too. You can ask yourself, like, I'm so used to this. It's not that bad. I'm waiting for them to propose, all this stuff. Bro, at the end of the day, it's your life. Like
yeah,
everybody, I don't know. I, maybe I have like kind of a tough look on that, but like at the end of the day, it's you by yourself. Like other people will be there for parts of the ride and whatever, but you take care of yourself first. That's
yeah.
all. Yeah.
I I don't think that's, I think societally that's a tough look. Not a tough look, like maybe the wrong way to
Yeah.
put it, but a lot of people might not agree. You know, and you're philanthropic in the sense of like this is doesn't mean that you're a selfish dickhead, right? But I'm a firm believer too that if you're gonna live 75, 80 years on this planet, like live it for you. Don't live it for other people. And ultimately, if you are the type of person that wants to live it for other people, energetically, you can't pour from an empty cup. Right?
Yeah.
I think you and I talked about that before as well. Like if you're gonna keep giving and giving and giving and you never give to yourself and you never live for yourself, you can't at some point you can't give.
Yeah.
There's no more.
You can't give, you'll feel overwhelmed, you'll be burned out, you might be broke, like,
Yeah.
and ultimately, I try and put this in perspective too, when, like, eventually when I have children, like, what do I wanna do? Do I just want to, I don't know, just spoil them and make my entire life revolve around them? Like, to a certain degree, yeah, of course, there's gonna be that because, like, I'll be the dad, right? But to another part, it's like, I wanna make sure that I'm doing everything in my, I wanna make sure that I'm inspiring them on a day-to-day basis, and by doing that, that really means by putting myself first as well too. Maybe it's easier said than done. I'm not a dad. Maybe I'll look back on this and be like, "Wow, I'm so wrong." But I can envision a future in which I'm doing such amazing things. I'm living the life that I want, and that is just 100% like rubbing off on them, and my children will know that, hey, I can do anything that I put my mind to as well too. Like dad taught us that we can live the life that we dreamed of. We can create our own reality. And I think that's incredibly important. And I honestly think that that would have a bigger impact on the world than by me just being like coddling them 100% of all the time and dismissing all of the passions that I have and all that.
Yeah. Man, there's like another 25 minutes worth of talking that I would want to do specifically on that. But you mentioned two words there that went off like red flags in my head. Create your own reality. I know you have that tattooed on yourself. Can you tell, the
Yes.
audience and myself what that means?
Comes from this book, man. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
who is this? Vadim Zealand, Reality Transurfing. I read the version in 78 days, but they're just principles inside the book on how you can basically create your own reality, make your dreams turn into reality. I think that there are technical ways to actually help integrate your own desires and your own thoughts inside of your reality. But I think like first and foremost, before you can really do any of that, you have to believe that what you imagine can be real. But I think a good analogy and a good thing to think about is you really can't think about a new color because that doesn't exist. But the things that you can think about, they technically do exist. So if you can kind of like wrap your head around that concept, then I think it makes it a lot easier to believe that like if I can dream something or if I have this desire in my heart, then surely it can exist and it most likely already does exist. And if you do believe in a creator, then everything's been created anyway. So that actually makes life a lot easier, in my opinion.
Yeah, everything you want in life is already existent and abundant and infinite supply. It's
Yeah.
just a
And in
factor of
fact,
aligning your intention.
on the tattoo have here right now, like create your reality, that's what it reads out on my wrist. Thank God I'm surrounding myself with other people who have this same exact tattoo, by the way. So just kind of shows you like where I'm at and like who I'm
Yeah.
surrounding myself with. But I would say, I don't even fully believe in this anymore. Like create your reality.
Okay.
I wish I would have got it differently, but it also reminds me of who I was when I got it, which is you don't need to create anything. Creating actually is like quite a lot of work. All you need to do is choose your reality. Because if it's already created, you just pick, okay, this is the timeline that I want. This is the life that I want. And as long as you're living in alignment and congruency with that, which ultimately you will know when you're out of alignment, you will be sick. You won't feel very happy. You will be in toxic relationships. You will be broke. Like if you're doing the wrong things, the life will obviously reflect that. When you're in
Yeah.
alignment, you will feel happy, maybe in love,
Depending on
abundance.
your definition or belief system, creation is it's not real, right?
Yeah.
Like the whole principle of alchemy, just it's top of mind because 2 weeks ago I interviewed Ali the alchemist, right? So it just so happens that it's very top of mind for me. Alchemy is the transmutation of energy, right? And typically people will refer to alchemy as gold or iron to gold or metal to metal, let's say. But truly alchemy is energetic. right? And the law of conservation of energy states that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be,
Yeah.
what is it, transferred, I think is the word.
Yeah.
Um,
So, like, even when you die, it's just like the energy still exists, it's going elsewhere. Maybe it's being spread out. I don't know,
yeah,
but
depending on what you believe. But
yeah.
yeah, I think that's such a positive frame of mind, not to look back at something you actually permanently placed on your, body as like a negative, but it shows you the levels, stages of awareness that you've grown from,
Yeah.
right? Like I have tattooed on my body here a bunch of stuff, but time heals all wounds in Latin. And while I still believe it to be true, my understanding of that is drastically different than it was when I got it tattooed on my body. Right? Like, I know I have the power to heal all of my wounds, it's not simply time that will do that. It comes
Yeah.
from the inside, it comes from my emotional state, it comes from the way that I can dictate my energy. So, I'm not just gonna sit here for 3 years and allow a wound to heal. No, I can intentionally do it. Now, if I were to re-tattoo it, I might describe it in that way instead of simply with time. Um, but yeah, I think creating your reality or that principle in and of itself from reality transurfing is a little bit far out for people. So how would you maybe what are some strategies you would use to do that, in general? Maybe for the person who isn't fully aware of the things that you and I have read about and studied.
I think there's 2 things that really come to mind, which is like, and these are both gonna be pretty complicated, especially if you're just getting into potentially improving your life or making drastic changes, but the first one is journaling, just writing down and being specific with the journaling too. I don't like to journal about negative things that have happened. If I'm journaling something negative that happened, I'm only bringing more awareness to it, honestly, and I'm only like concreting it in. It's not that I don't have to pretend like it didn't happen, but I just don't really need to like write on and on and on about it. I can kind of like simply let it go and then focus on the things that I'm more grateful for. So I would
Mhm,
recommend that you write down in a journal every single day for at least 1 week, kind of if there was no limitations, if you didn't have to worry about money, if you didn't have maybe even a family to provide for, if it was just you yourself, what does your dream life really look like? Does it look like you moving to a different place? Does it look like you having a yacht membership? Like what, just go all out and just like give yourself the permission to really dream big and challenge yourself each day to even go bigger and bigger and bigger. And you'll start to see kind of like what's coming to the surface, I think. And the second thing could be in addition to the journaling as well, which is like before you go to bed, reread what you just wrote and just kind of sit on that thought and try not to let all these other external emotions and thoughts come in and just really sit with that thought. So let's just say, for example, I'm journaling. I want to get married on Lake Como in Italy and have all my friends and family there. And I know it's going to be $200,000, but I don't, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter to me. Like, I have that money, then maybe before I go to bed, I'll think about what it's like to be at Lake Como with all my friends and family, getting married to this beautiful bride, sitting in the chapel. Maybe we go for a boat ride afterwards. I'm just kind of like sitting with that thought for 5, 10, 15 minutes before I go to bed. And then those are kind of the thoughts that are now marinating in my brain while I'm sleeping, which is a very powerful thing. I think people kind of underestimate that. Especially you'll notice too if you have a heavy work day or and you're working too late close to bedtime, those thoughts may bleed right into your sleep then. If you've ever experienced that or if you got in a big fight earlier that day with a significant other, then those thoughts might bleed in there. We want to do that same thing, but we want to do it with the better thoughts, like the more positive ones, the ones that we want to become reality. And
mhm.
with time, that just starts to happen. It truly does. It's actually crazy. Maybe do it for more than 7 days, but I think 7 days
Yeah,
is a really good, like, challenge to yourself if you're just getting started.
I agree. Why do you believe that journaling is so important? Yeah, like, obviously you explained some of the aspects of it right there, but I feel like most people that I talk to, journaling for them is difficult and they don't really it's just like one of those things, right? For someone who's
Yeah.
been journaling for a long time, like both of us, it's like, well, you don't journal? Like, are you kidding me? But for most people, it's like that sounds stupid. So why do it in the first place?
Well, yeah, I'll say this. There's definitely phases where I don't journal, and then I feel like my life is, like, falling apart, but it wasn't always that way, and, yeah, I didn't always used to journal. And there was a time where I felt like, "What am I supposed to write about?" But I've found the best way to journal for at least myself is to only focus on the positives. So, like, maybe recap what happened that day that was just extraordinary. And even if that day all I did was go to the gym and I had like one client call that went really well, I can really elaborate on the details and I can go in like, why was it so amazing? Well, at the gym, I actually hit a PR, or I wasn't in a rush and I didn't listen to my music and I felt really connected and grounded. And, I talked to somebody new in the sauna that I felt a little uncomfortable kind of putting myself out there, but it was such an incredible experience. Like, just go deep on those things. And what I'm doing is, when I'm extracting those thoughts from my brain, I'm putting them pen to paper, and now they are real. It's no longer this thing that's abstract in my mind. It's actually physical in the world. I just wrote it down. It's documented. And for me, that brings a lot of clarity. I also think being a great writer is fucking sick. Like, if you could just refine your skill set of writing, I think you'll just be a cooler person overall.
Mhm. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think if there's people out there that struggle with the principle of journaling as a whole, like one of the strategies that I have been using recently, specifically for what we just described, the people who don't know what to do or what to journal about. If you're trying to become somebody better, that person that you want to become has certain character traits, right? They have certain things. So I use what I call like a 3 by 3 by 3. So three pieces of evidence from the last day that would be in alignment with the person that I want to be. Three pieces of three things I'm grateful for. And then three things I'm going to do today that will be in alignment with that same person.
Oh, that's
I
great.
think that I haven't needed it personally in the past, but it's a framework that I developed that to help that person that's like just on the starting out.
Yeah.
And I'm same to you, man. Like I'll go certain days without journaling because life gets busy, and I'm so the kind of guy that be like, you got to make time for it. Like you and I both know you got time, but humans aren't perfect. And then when I go back to it and I sit in the sun in the morning and I write in my journal, and it's like I can't describe the feeling.
Yeah.
It's indescribable, you know.
I've been able to put detailed thoughts on the paper that I might have felt uncomfortable saying out loud. And that has made me a better man for sure. Because
What do you
now
mean by that?
I've been able to toy around with things I wanted to say, or like I didn't know how to phrase, or like whatever. And by just kind of, that is building the courage, just by me writing and maybe phrasing it a certain way or whatever. Um, and yeah, like, if there's something you don't really want to say out loud, or you don't really know how to say it, I can safely do it in a journal. I can just kind of like get it out there, and then
Yeah.
over time I can kind of play around with like how I'm saying it or whatever. Now maybe I feel more comfortable bringing up the topics or whatever it may be, and I just think that has developed me because now I'm able to have tougher conversations in real life with almost anybody. I feel way more equipped. And I honestly attribute that mostly to journaling. It's by building up confidence in my journal, bringing up topics maybe that are taboo, or I don't just don't really know. Maybe I've never had them before. I
Mhm.
can kind of mock that out and like have a preview in my journal.
It's kind of like, when you go through an argument or something happens in your day, and then you take a shower in the evening, and then you're like, oh, I should have said that. Oh, I should have said that.
Yeah.
Like you play it out in your head. But the reality is, like, when you play it out in your head, it's very abstract, like you said. There's nothing really concrete happening. And chances are the next morning you might forget everything that you just thought of. But if you put pen to
Yeah.
paper, that's real now. And you can apply
Yeah.
that. I mean, the memory will serve you far, far greater. Um, I would love to transition as the last subject that I want to ask you about into the topic of philanthropy, right? Because we had a super interesting conversation the first time we spoke about how philanthropy is an amazing thing, but Jesus Christ, can't speak English. It can also serve selfish purposes. Um, so I would love for you to kind of explain to us what your philanthropic endeavors are, and then we'll
Sure.
have a conversation about that.
Yeah, well, I would say it all stems from my orphanage situation, basically, and being adopted. When I moved to Miami, I made friends with another guy who was also adopted from Russia, but he was adopted when he was 5 years old. I was adopted when I was just around 1 years old. And it was really interesting kind of hearing about his perspective. And I did feel like we had this kind of weird bond, I think because of that, and just like maybe a little bit of an understanding. And we had conversations about this and whatever, but I think he really helped me kickstart the idea that like there are people that were just like me, but this is still happening. This is still active. And in some instances, there are reports that there's anywhere between like 17 million to like 200 million children in the entire world. That kind of
Gosh.
depends because it's slightly skewed only because like if one of your parents is not in the life or whatever, they actually count that as an orphan as well too. And that it's there's like all these like yeah weird
Semantics.
like kind of yeah it's like a whole thing. But still, let's say that on the low end, still there's only 17 million. That's still an insane amount of people. And if I think like 17 million of me as a baby, like that's just it's kind of hard to grasp and whatnot. So I've I basically built up the courage from him, the friend I met in Miami, as well as other friends here, to kind of share my story online. And that was really incredible, not only because more people started to share their stories as well too and kind of like open up, but it also gave me an opportunity to speak with my family, collect some images, ask them some questions as well too. And I just think overall it was like a really, really great experience. Now from that, I was able to kind of kickstart my philanthropic mission, which is to donate 1 million meals to orphans worldwide. Originally, it was intended to be like feed 1 million orphans themselves. But because I'm doing this so bootstrapped, which means like I'm just doing it out of the generosity of my own heart, pretty much like I'm self funding it. Sometimes I will accept like small donations of like 50 bucks or whatever from a family or friend if they know that I'm going, but it's not something that at least today that I'm like actively fundraising for. It is not a nonprofit. It is literally me taking some of the money that I'm making from my business, flying to a destination, going to a grocery store, buying as much food as I can possibly fit, like sometimes there will be like 10 plus shopping carts and then we'll take that food, we'll bring it to an orphanage, literally meet the kids, give them the food, maybe meet the kitchen staff or something, and then we're on our way out. And we've done that 3 times in 2025, but I really started developing this idea in 2024. And a big portion of that was because the friend who was an orphan, who was adopted when he was 5, was just kind of going in a little bit of detail to how malnourished not only he was, but like everybody in the orphanage was. And it wasn't until I think late 2025, I found out from my parents that before they adopted me, I wasn't even being fed food. I was just being fed sugar water.
Wow.
So like, yeah, it just goes to show really, it's like, I think it's terrible to be honest, like that a child might not have really anybody to turn to and like not a mother and a father to love them realistically, like unconditionally. But then on top of that, the fact that their basic needs are not being met is just like, I mean, it's straight hell. So I want to do something about that. That's why I started the mission. So far, I've done 3 destinations. I've gone to Cape Town, I've gone to El Salvador, and I've gone to Bali, all very different experiences. I've actually documented all of them as well too. I posted them on YouTube. Love to share the link in the bio to that
For
playlist of
sure.
those videos. Um, but yeah, it's been an incredible experience, honestly. I feel so blessed to be able to go there. And you can see in the videos how awkward I was when I am there. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with my
Right.
hands. I don't even know what to say. It's just like such an insane experience. But I'm so happy that I've been able to kind of like start it. And to date, we've done over like 11,250 meals. And that was just
Amazing.
in 2025 and 2026. My goal is to do at least 25,000. So it's this thing that's like my lifelong mission now, kind of like it's not my full-time job or anything. It's like this
Yeah.
thing that when I do it, I feel like I'm helping kids that were just like me. And I mean, if we're all kind of interconnected, like it really is like I'm giving back to myself, like when I was younger. And I
Do
think
you
that's like a huge motivation.
do you wish to turn it into a not for profit then? Because I know right now it's just kind of like a, Alex Evans gives
Yeah.
food to a bunch of amazing people, but is it something that you want to take a little bit more seriously from a, I guess, a professional sense, if that is like the defining term that I would use?
I'm not sure. I'm in a group chat right now with incredible people who are all running nonprofits, and they all give me the same encouragement and advice, which is like, don't rush into anything. Like, just take it at your own speed. And like, look, I'm only into my second year of it, so I think I have so many years to go, and maybe down the line it could become a nonprofit. But right now, that doesn't really jump out to me. I don't feel super called to do that. Um, but the only thing that I would really like to do specifically for the mission is I'm not even looking for people's money. I would rather prefer to take money from brands, big corporations who have the budgets, who can already make a really big difference and a big impact. The only thing I ask from people is like maybe just to learn a little bit more about the mission or share a video realistically. But Brandon Peacock, one of your guests that you had on, he has a nonprofit and he has a division in the US, and there could potentially be some collaboration there if like a brand wanted to get involved with me, maybe we can route it through his
Yeah,
situation as well too. So that's something
amazing.
I'd be interested in.
I would love to ask you, it's like maybe outside the scope of what would typically be asked in a conversation about philanthropy, right? But it's something that we talked about before. Like, where do you see your selfish side come out in your reasoning for philanthropic efforts? Now, I want to, before you answer, I want to provide context. Alex and I have both kind of admitted to each other that, and kind of earlier in this episode as well, like we are selfish people, but not at the expense of other people,
Yeah,
right?
I'd
So,
say that.
how do you see that manifesting itself in the reason that you do this? Not taking away at all from
Yeah.
the doing of it.
I don't think I would have ever started it if I didn't feel like I was going to get something out of it. And I'm just
Okay.
being honest. Like I think that in so many ways, I want to serve the younger version of myself, and I know that
Mhm.
that is one of the ways that I can heal the younger problems that I've had as well too, or like like the problems or situations I've faced in my young life as well too. And I just think that every time, and this still stands to be true. It's like I'm not, this is like the ultra selfish portion, actually. I'm sure if the mission gets bigger, people will like clip this up. But it's like, I'm typically going to orphanages and places that I've wanted to go anyways. And I
Okay.
will like maybe already have a trip going. And then I will think, oh, like I want to get involved in the community. I want to go seek out an orphanage in that area. So I'm going to Europe this summer. Like I will try to find an orphanage in Europe to go to because I'm already going to be there. Like it just already kind of like makes sense to me.
Mhm.
Whereas maybe some hardcore extremists might be like, no, you need to go to the one that needs it the most or whatever. It's like, well, I don't really know even what that means yet. And I'm just kind of doing this in the fashion that makes the most sense for me right now. So like there's one end of it there. And then the other end, I think is just like every time I'm making the contribution, I'm just like I'm in the orphanage. I get this overwhelming feeling of like somebody did this for me. Like
Yeah.
this is the least I can do. And it feels like I'm following in the footsteps and it feels like a greater calling. And even I can even recall back in Cape Town, which was my first contribution I ever did, we had no car to get the groceries anywhere. And the grocery store just ended up like getting us a truck because they asked us why we were buying so much food. And that was amazing because I had no idea how we were going to get all the food there. We literally needed an entire truck. This completely wasn't planned at all. My credit card wasn't working. It kept getting flagged for fraud. But
Yeah.
thankfully, I had a friend with me, and she was willing to just like cover it as well. So
Yeah.
like that also worked out. And then the orphanage itself, another friend had a connection to there from the college that I went to, and I had no idea even about that. So like they really didn't want people coming to the orphanage, but they had this previous connection that I wasn't aware of. And they welcomed us with welcoming arms, being like, no, please come. Like, she was so great the last time she came, whatever. Like, we'd love to see you guys. And
Yeah.
I felt in that moment, everything was just unraveling and happening so smoothly. Like, there really was no reason why, other than, in my opinion, that God just completely made everything happen. He made it work perfectly, seamlessly.
I
And
would love
that was
to.
a huge, yeah, that was a huge, like green flag to me though. I was like, okay, clearly I'm doing something right
Yeah.
here.
I would love to, if you'd be so kind as to invite me one day, join you on one of those. For the selfish reason would be I think it would be an incredibly cool and emotionally compelling experience. I'm just imagining vividly inside of my mind like how emotional I think I would get being in an environment like that. I'm definitely like a cry at a movie kind of guy, depending on the movie, and I think that's definitely an environment where I would probably feel my heartstrings very tugged. and I would love to join the higher calling. Out of curiosity, um, oh, I completely forgot the question I was going to ask you, and it was a good one too. That's awful. Let's see here. Oh, well, it's gone.
That's okay.
Completely
I
gone.
would love for you to come on a trip though. I'll tell you this though. I've had a couple people. It was funny enough. I did like one contribution, posted on YouTube, probably got like, I don't know, somewhere between 500 and 1,000 views. Not much at
Yeah,
all, but also happy about it for sure. Like, I
yeah,
think it was really cool that I took the initiative to document it because I didn't really know how to create like long form content or anything like that. But
yeah.
I got so much feedback on my personal Instagram, people saying like, "Oh, I should have done this," or "I should have done that," or "I should have donated this," or whatever, or like, "Why didn't you bring toys?" And I thought that that was really an interesting dynamic. And I think that most of the people that say those kind of comments most likely are not doing anything, to be honest, at all. Like, they're
Yep.
just watching the video and then just like leaving a comment. And I would hope and pray that the people who are doing that can like somehow get reached or compelled or change their mind to also get involved and live a life in which they can give back to other people as well too, because I think it could inject a lot of energy and a lot of positivity and a lot of love back into their lives as well.
I remember what I was going to say now. And it has to do with I think I'm a huge proponent in you are gonna figure out your own path. Like I say that to my clients a lot, right? Like you should not be deferring the responsibility of carving your path to someone else and should only be seeking mentorship oftentimes when you have a very specific strategic problem. That's maybe like a hot take depending on who you ask, but I found myself feeling lost in times and trying to defer the responsibility of that. I think if you did the things that these people were telling you to do or took it more serious than you felt called to do right now, the long-term effect would be net negative relative to what it currently would be because right now you feel
Yeah,
called. You will continue to feel called and naturally it will ascend to whatever it will become. But if you just went I think if I mean, you could correct me if I'm wrong, but if I think if you just went balls to the wall right now on something that you didn't feel called to do, then the effort would fizzle out and 10 years from now, maybe it doesn't happen anymore, it doesn't exist anymore.
exactly.
I think a
100%.
lot of people have that.
I would agree completely with that.
Yeah.
I met somebody who said that they could get us like a brand deal or whatever and like fly me and a videographer for free and lodge us as long as we made like a, basically like a small contribution. Well, that small contribution ended up being like $25,000 worth, which is not small in my opinion. And it started to feel like this wasn't going in the right direction. And started to feel like I'm biting off more than I could chew. I ultimately pulled out of that. And it actually kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. And I thought for the same thing is like, sure, maybe could I crowd fundraise and get some money and like work towards this? Yes. But is that what I'm supposed to be doing right now? No. So just knowing how to decipher between those opportunities, I think is really, really important and what will allow me to be sustainable and allow this mission to actually reach the goal, which is a million. And Tony Robbins has a similar mission, by the way, too. I don't think it's just for orphans, but it's just to feed. At this point, I think it's just as many people as possible. I think there's a number like a million people a week or something like that. But when he
It was like a
started,
a billion or something, I think, like some insane.
I think it started even smaller at first, though. I think it
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah, it
I
did,
don't
it
know,
did.
100
But
million
they
or
crossed
something.
it in, like, 12 months or something, it was insane.
Yikes. And they didn't even know how they were going to do that either. But it's
Yeah.
just like, it takes the right team. It takes a lot of sustainability, takes a lot of effort. Like, I don't want to half-ass it. So I just want to continue to grow at the rate that it should be. And even when I speak to other business owners, they don't want to scale their business too fast. So I think there's a lot of logic behind that.
I mean, look at where Tony Robbins is now. Yes, he's been doing philanthropy since as long as, he's been around and as long as he's been making money, but he didn't start out with the goal of feeding, 100 million or a billion people
No,
when, 50 years ago. He now has that in his I think he's what, in his late 60s now, early 70s.
yeah,
Um,
he just had a kid like 2 years ago. Though.
yeah,
He's
crazy
still
guy.
doing it.
Crazy guy. He's still pumping them out. But
Yeah,
I think that's what we just mentioned there is kind of like a beautiful metaphor for life as well. Was doing a marketing company similar to you and it just simply just wasn't what I knew I was gonna do in 5 years' time. And so ultimately there would always be an exit, you know, and I don't mean like an equity exit, I mean like an exit from doing
Like,
it in general.
done.
Yeah. And that was because I didn't feel called to do it, right? And so if I had continued to, then the livelihood of whatever, you know, my energy would have been fucked.
Yeah,
And
your energy would have been screwed, and you would have not been in such a good opportunity or mental state to be able to make sharper maneuvers that you would need to and now to really get your podcast off the ground and any other things that you're focused on. If you're stuck in a toxic relationship, you're negatively impacting every other aspect of your life as well too. It makes it harder to change things and evolve and level up and become the person who you really want to become. And the only way that you'll really know who you want to become is if you spend some time by yourself, thinking, allowing yourself to be, and ideally doing some of the things that you loved to do when you were younger. For me, it's like swimming, going for a bike ride, watching the sunset. Sometimes even just like going for casual lunch with a friend who I
yeah,
feel like maybe we're not seeing eye to eye, or like I feel a little bit out of date with. They can really like really fire me up in like the best way possible, and it makes every other aspect of my life feel a lot easier and a lot more motivating as well too.
I think that is a beautiful place to end it. This has been literally every single show I do is just one of the most incredibly compelling conversations that I've ever had. And hopefully the start of a beautiful friendship between the both of us. The last question I would want to ask you is where can they find you? And if they do find you and feel compelled to speak with you, what would you like them to do?
Yeah. So if I would say like, the best way to find me is probably going to be on Instagram. Realistically, I have two different accounts now. My personal one is Alex Evans 997. It's kind of like where I've been doing everything. And if you're interested in the orphanage stuff, you'll actually be able to see it there as well too. You can look up Alex Evans 997 on YouTube. You'll find all those videos, but we'll link it down below. And I just launched a new Instagram I'm pretty excited about. And I think that this one is going to continue to grow pretty rapidly because it's where I'm posting every single day. I'm posting videos every day right now. And that's
Amazing.
Alex for Wellness. In the future, wellness is like something I'm very passionate about right now. So I just want to keep like kind of like going down that hole and like seeing what I can find and tweaking my lifestyle and making more optimizations. And as I'm kind of doing that, I'm just like posting about that. So if you're in the wellness space and you want to see what I'm up to or give me some ideas, like go follow over there. But yeah, if you feel like you could help me in any way, you want to get involved in the orphanage thing, or you just want to have a conversation, or you are looking for mentorship from myself as well too. I always open my doors. I read most of my DMs on Instagram, so on on either of the accounts most likely I will see it. Otherwise, you can just like comment to check my DM and I'll most likely see it as well too. But I've always opened it up. Like if you're watching this and you feel like we would get along or we'd be good friends or you're passing by Miami or whatever, just shoot me a message. Like I'm super open and I'm always down to meet new people who are doing some cool shit.
Amazing. Do you want to leave them with anything like a closing thought or, a compelling narrative or something like that?
Mm, I would say don't work too hard. That's it. Take it easy.
Amazing.
Be easy on
Alex,
yourself.
thank you so much for, spending an hour and 30 minutes, give or take the 8 minutes before we started recording with me. And I hope those of you who have watched enjoyed the episode. And we will be back in 2 weeks with another one after the upload of this one. See you guys later. Peace.
Thank you, Tristan. Bye, guys.